So today I was doing some reflecting because we're at the 20th anniversary of September 11th, 2001, and I was reminded of where I was on September 11th, 2001. And I think most of us have a story about that day, but for me, I was in basic training in San Antonio, Texas, and I was sitting in a classroom filled with 59 other airmen, and the title of the class was Anti-Terrorism. And over the course of the previous few hours, we learned all about previous terrorist attacks and terrorist groups and all that type of thing. And all of a sudden, after a break, came back from the latrine and we were getting back in the classroom, and the instructor comes in and starts talking about these planes that crashed into buildings in New York. And me, like many of the people in the class, thought that it was just part of the curriculum, like it was just a hypothetical scenario. And we sat there listening to him, and we just couldn't fathom how it could be true. And then the first sergeant walks into the classroom and pulls out all the guys that lived in New York and in that area, and brought them outside and started talking to them about how they need to get a hold of their families. And you could hear in the tone of his voice that this was real. Like, up until that moment, it didn't seem real. And we're just sitting in this classroom learning about terrorism, and this happens, and it just, like, things changed so much. We training changed, what we were doing changed, the emphasis on certain things changed, while other things that had been scheduled were just canceled so that we could focus on other things. We were all given opportunities to call home and let everybody know we were all right. And over the next few weeks, we were just going through all of these different classes and all these different trainings, and everything felt so different, so real. And every once in a while we'd get little pieces of information, but we really didn't know entirely what was going on because we didn't have access to the news, or we'd get little bits and pieces from instructors or from people that we called back home, but we really didn't understand it. And then 2 weeks later was our graduation from basic training, and the squadron commander was given remarks at graduation, which I'm sure happens pretty normally from basic training. And he started talking about how we were a country at war, and even though we'd all joined a peacetime military, that was no longer the case, and how many of us would serve our entire careers never knowing service in a peacetime military. And looking back, he was entirely right. Like, I spent 12 years in the Air National Guard and deployed numerous times to numerous places. And when I wasn't off somewhere else and I was home at my home squadron here in Sioux Falls, the next deployment and the next duty, it was always first thing on everybody's mind. It was always prepping for the next thing, because somebody was always getting ready to deploy. And even if it wasn't you, like, all the emphasis was on the next thing. And after moving back to Sioux Falls this last year and being closer to family and reflecting on all this, it just really makes you appreciate everything, because how confused and scared and just not knowing what was going on back 20 years ago was just hard to fathom today. And now we're still in this position where we still don't know what's going on entirely, and we're still trying to figure out what happens next. But I guess that's the nature of a modern world. So I'm going to spend this weekend remembering and trying to figure out what this last 20 years has all been about, because 20 years ago the world changed, and what did we learn from it? What have we done better? And I'm hopeful, but only time will tell. So thanks for listening.